You can use your phone to advance the slides.
Can I? That's kind of cool.
Don't distract me.
All right, so we are here today with Digico SD9 Behind the Faders is what I'm calling our seminar. Behind the faders, so behind the scenes. And I think before we start, why don't we pray real quick? Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for allowing our schedules to line up to where we can all meet tonight, Lord. We thank you for the gifts that you've given us, Lord. We ask that you please bless us tonight with understanding and just the ability to walk away with from this with a greater understanding of the tools that you have given us in order to bring people closer to you. We ask that you please bless us all tonight. And amen. Amen. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through 4 different sections, which I think it's now progressing through.
I didn't catch the first one.
We're in section 3 already. Come on. We're going to be done way before 9 o'clock.
All right, hold on. I hit a button.
You hit an autoplay button.
I do have an autoplay button. Okay. So the first section that we're going to go through is connections. On this, we're going to talk about the specs. We're going to go over the layout of how all the wires are here at Meck. We're going to go over routing, about how to get something inside of the board, how to get it playing out, and the most efficient way to do that. Talk about the inputs, the different kind of inputs that you can have coming into the board. We're going to talk about the channel structures, and then the outputs. So basically, we're going to go from the point that the source music is made, or sound is made, all the way through to the time it comes out of the speakers. I want y'all to understand that, and that way be able to better troubleshoot if you don't have a signal or something doesn't sound right. The second thing that we're going to talk about is busing. One of the big things about the board is its power to be able to group things, assign things through the auxes or through the bank, using the banks to layer out and that kind of stuff. The matrix is another big thing that we're going to go to. And of course, the big one, groups versus control groups, because I know that is the most confusing thing so far as we've transitioned from analog to digital. And then the third section, which I haven't gotten a picture for, is internal functions. I couldn't find something for it. What's inside the board? What does the board do on the inside? Once it gets the signal, how is it processing it? How are we able to manipulate it? And basically with that, through graphic EQs, the effects, and then also the other features that the board offers as far as miscellaneous internal inputs, which we'll go into. The fourth section is templates, and this is going to be how to make one. By the end of we get done with section 4, I would like for y'all to have the ability to, from scratch, nothing, be able to create your own template that works the best with you, and then you can either keep reusing that template from week to week, or be able to use the same show file from week to week to week. That would be my goal, is if we can get well enough acquainted with the board to where we can go from week to week using the same file. It's going to save so much time on patching and on EQing. And I'll get more into that on later. So let's go into the first section. Oh, there's the templates picture. Okay. So the first section is connections again. The circuit board there. So let's go into the SD9 specifications. The SD9 has the ability to have up to 72 mic inputs. That's mic versus line. Real quick, does everyone understand the difference between a mic level and a line level?
Explain.
Okay. What it is there's 2 different types of signals, okay? You have a mic line and you have a line level. And what these are, they're the voltages of which the sound comes into the board. The line level is much higher. It can come at about 4.7 volts, whereas mic line level is much less. It's about 2.3 or so. So what that means is a line level signal is almost twice as loud as a mic line signal. That's very important when you're plugging things in.
Also, on the analog boards, there's usually a mic and a line button that you can use almost as a pad. Okay, so if your gain is, if you're at the point where you can't turn it down anymore, oftentimes you can hit mic or line or whatever, and that will actually give you more padding.
Is that digital and analog?
Well, on the analog board, there's actually a physical button that you would push, but this is why that you would do that.
This is why you would do that. Basically, what that does, that button puts a resistor in there and knocks that voltage down.
Is it basically a gain that you're taking out?
Yeah, it's like just having the signal like that. You just say, I only need 50% of that signal.
Which would
because
be
it's
more
so loud.
gain versus volume? Or does it not transfer at all like that? Am I
Sort
way off
of.
base?
Yeah, let's not go down that route. So mic line level, okay, let's talk about what that's going to be. That's going to be most microphones, that's going to be most wirelesses, that's going to be anything that for the most part uses phantom power is another way to look at it. I like to think of it in the audio world, the easy way is, does it take an XLR or does it take a 1/4 inch? Because most things that are 1/4 inch are line level. And that's just the one difference. Line level is a much hotter signal. It's going to be what comes out of your guitars, acoustic guitars. It's going to be what comes out of amps. It's what's going to be coming out of computers. So you can think of it that way. But it's important to know before you just open that channel up and let that person start playing to know whether it's a mic and line. What you can do to make the line go to the mic on the analog board was to hit the mic or line input. And all that did was drop a transistor. It was a physical, not transistor, but a resistor. You physically adapted that signal. In the digital world, we use a pad. And the pad, it just drops it down 20 decibels. It's still looking at that 4.7 volts, but all it's doing is the digital side of it says, well, that's 4.7, but I'm just going to give you 50% of that. So now this will come into play later on when we go into auxiliaries, okay? So if I start getting into auxiliaries and I haven't started talking about this, remind me. So it has 72 mic inputs, okay? There are no line inputs into the system. Now, it'll handle a line input. It's kind of a mic / line, but basically on the digital world, at least with the SD9, it does not matter whether it's mic or line. The only difference is what you tell it on the board, what it is. So you still have to tell it. It'll accept both signals, just like on the analog board. You just have to tell it what it is. And it also has 2 AES inputs. Now, you can actually change that and have more AES inputs when we get into the DAC or the DRAC. But the 2 AES inputs, AES stands for American
Eagle?
something sound, I forget, there is something. Basically what it is a digital signal. You know, optical signal. AES is the copper version of that. It's the way that it encodes it to have a very high quality, lossless for the most part signal level.
Do we use them?
No, I would like to use that on the Mac Pro, but there's an adapter that switches from optical to AES, and for some reason it does not want to do what it's supposed to do. The way you can tell an AES, if you plug something that uses AES and you plug it into a mic line, all you're going to hear is white noise, because it's just shh, that's all it is.
What needs an AES?
Certain high quality recording or playback stuff, such as the Mac Pro. Now it also has, as far as the output side, it has a total of up to 40 line outputs. Notice that as a line output. So it is that 4.7, that really heavy out there line. And it has 2 AES outputs. Now the AES outputs and inputs are actually physically on the back of the board. So there's nothing in the rack that you have to worry about, which is very nice. With the 40 line outputs you have, and just like the inputs, 8 of those are on the back of the board, and then the other 32 of the outputs are on the DRACs, which we'll go into a little bit more detail in just a second. The SD9 can take up to 48 flexi channels, and most of y'all have already seen that, where it has 48 channels. They could be mono or they could be stereo. They could be mono and stereo. It doesn't matter. Basically, it can take multiple inputs and create it into one channel. So a channel can have up to 2 inputs into it, and the pan, instead of telling it where to go as far as an output, is saying which one to bias off of, which is good. On the analog board, when we did this, you had to use 2 faders and you lost an input. With this, you don't really lose a channel, so to say.
And we're using for all of our instruments and all of our vocals and all that stuff.
Is mono.
Yeah, percussion. We're using those flexi channels.
That's correct. Right. When you see flexi, it means either or. It means it does not matter. The board does not care. The board has the power to do that. Now, a little side note here. The SD9, all Digico stuff, SD9, SD10, SD11, SD7, 8, and 5, all have the same hardware inside of them, all have the same program inside of them. The only difference is that the SD9, the SD10, those kind of stuff, there are actual program limitations to it. So this has the same power as a 7D. It's the same power as SD10 from the hardware standpoint. It just doesn't allow you to use all that power. So that's something to write an email to Digico if you want to. Now, when we start talking about the outputs, we've talked about the inputs here at Flexi Channels. You get one master bus. That can be a mono bus, so it's just one output. It can be a stereo, left and right. That's what we use. And then it also can have an LCR, which is a left, center, and right.
Before we go any further, define what a bus is. What is a bus? Whether it's a master bus, a flexi bus, whatever. What is a bus?
A bus is something for other things to gang on. So you can have multiple signals. So let's say this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. They all go like this individually.
What are 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Let's say that they're channels. Okay, let's say channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4.
Yep.
All have separate types of audio coming in.
Yep.
What busing does is it takes them and it puts them into one bus, one audio line that is controlled by itself.
So is that like on the old board, the analog board, how we would have groups? Like
yes,
vocals?
that's considered a bus. Groups are considered a bus, and we'll get into a few more in here in a second. The master is considered a bus. You have 40 channels on the analog board. You had a left and a right. Those are buses. Same thing on here. Anytime that you take multiple signals and cut it down to fewer channels, you're busing. And so with that, the LCR is left, center, and right, which is where you would use it. You have like 2-line arrays in a center cluster or something like that. We don't use that here, so we don't have to worry about it. We're stereo. We have 16 flexi buses. So there's that flexi again. That means we can have 16 auxiliaries, so aux outs. We can have 16 groups, subgroups, or we can have any mix in between as long as they don't exceed 16. You physically can't go above 16.
And we're using most all of them, right?
We're using most all of them.
Yeah.
Now I've been trying, through the point that we've installed, I've been moving back and forth to try to figure out what the best fit is. Now think about this. You'd love to have a lot of control with different subgroups of your instruments, your vocals, your effects, your drums, lavs, and all that. But you start adding that up, and now you've got 4 sets of ears, and then 4 effects, which also use auxiliaries, and you start adding up to 16 real quick. As you need more ears, you need more auxiliaries. As you need more effects, you need more auxiliaries. If you want more subgroups, you have to have less auxiliaries. So there's a give and a take here that we have to be careful of and figure out the most efficient. This is where you have to be efficient in how you mix and how you route things. Not how you mix, but how you route things.
So does the buses stay every week, or are those subject to change every week?
They can be subject to change. You would rarely know as the musician.
For the most part, they stay the same. But something that we have done, we used to, for a while, we
Christmas.
we had a vocal aux, a vocal subgroup, an instrument subgroup, a master subgroup. Now in some, we're using just a master and an instrument, right?
That's what I'm using. I'm
That's
using
what
an
you're-
instrument
right.
and a master. If it's not an instrument,
Goes in the master.
it goes in the master. And I'll explain why I do that later.
Right.
But basically, I have up to, at that point, 15 auxiliaries to mess with. So anytime you see something in there more aux, that usually means that there's 15 auxes in there, or 13 or something like that. A massive amount of auxiliaries, because I'm wanting to go heavy on effects.
Right. So there's no limit how many channels you can put in a bus.
You could put up to every single channel. You could put to 48 channels in a bus.
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Attaboy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm worth something.
You could put 48 channels into every bus if you wanted to. So, all right.
That would be stupid.
So, are we good on the flexi buses? Are there any questions about the flexi buses? Okay, the matrix. This is the lovely thing. So, the matrix is how we get sound from the board and output it to different places. Okay. Now, a lot of guys, when you hear matrix in the analog days, that was how you did PA management. So, how you did your line arrays or how you did monitors versus this or that versus that. Now it's more about if you're sending out to different places. For us, it's production world. It's CD recording. It's the cafe. Those are our three big ones. So we have production, which is iNet, cafe, and we have CD recording. And all three of those, is that me? I'm sorry. All three of those get the same mix for the most part. Now notice I do quotations because we have the ability to change the individual outputs. We choose not to. We just send the same amount to each one and we affect each three separately. And I'll go into that a little bit later when we go into the matrix a little heavily. I'm also going to go into how the matrix works as far as inputs and outputs at a later time. I'm just going over the specifications of what we have. We also have, this is also considered a bus, okay? The matrix is considered a bus because you have multiple inputs. There's 12 coming in. So you have 12 inputs into the matrix, and you have 8 outputs. So think about that as 8 more buses, but then you can count the 12 also. So in the end, there's actually 47 buses off of the SD9 when you count them all up as we go through.
Is that related to the internet campus? Technically, that's a matrix?
The matrix is what controls the internet campus. That is what the internet campus is getting. Okay? The last bus that we have is control groups. And the control groups are like subgroups, but they're different. Subgroups are like control groups, but they're different. And we'll go into that in section 2. But they are buses as well.
Okay, 2 things.
Yep.
Number 1, we're used to, in the analog world, looking at the back of the board, and if it's a 60-channel board, there's 60 inputs across here.
Uh-huh.
On this board, there's 8 outputs that are XLR, but everything else that comes into it comes in through those D-racks, right?
Right.
So we should never ever have to touch that D-rack.
That's not true.
Okay.
What's the DRAC?
You shouldn't have to touch the back of the board. I'll say
Shouldn't
that.
have to touch the back.
Unless it's iPad or something like that, iPod.
iPod. Okay.
But the way that it's set up, and I'm going to go through that through the routing.
Okay. And then the second thing was, it was just my thought. Oh, there you go, the D-racks. Okay.
Yeah.
I just assumed, Jared, that if you've got 24 channels across and 4 banks,
why am I doing
that's
this?
96. So I just thought, I could have 95 inputs with 1 output, or I could have 1 input with 94 outputs.
Right.
But you can't.
No.
There's limits. There's a
There's
limit
limits.
to 72 inputs, and there's a limit to 40 outputs.
So these are the D-racks. Let's go into that. So this is the D-rack. The other one was the picture of the board. We all know what the board looks like. Okay, good. This is the D-rack here. It's a little bit. Okay. So as you see here, there are 4 strips of 8 outputs, okay, which total up to 32, I'm sorry, inputs. 32 inputs here, okay?
Are those all XLRs?
These are all XLR females, which
Okay.
means that only a male XLR will go into it,
Okay.
okay? Now these can be changed out, but we're not going to. Okay, you can change these out and have AES in here if you wanted to.
Okay.
We're not going to.
But those can be used as inputs and they can also be used as sense.
No. This section here is only inputs. All 32 of those are only inputs.
Gotcha.
Down here is your output. There's this little curve. We're going to go look at this in a second here. But there's a curve here, and everything down low is your outputs. Now, right now, the way that we have the board, the D-racks set up, is we have 8 line outputs, XLR outputs. There's only 8 of them on each one of these. You can add 9 through 16 on each one. We haven't done that yet. We will when we get more ears.
We have how many D-racks?
And where are they?
2
And they are,
in the rack room. We're gonna take a walking
I know,
tour in a
got it.
second after I go over some more stuff.
Now, so the outputs are only used for ears right now?
What's your main?
They're okay. 5 are used for ears. 3 are used for outputs, the mains, which is left, right, and sub. And you have 2 for production, 2 for CD, 1 for cafe, and
That's more than 8. There's 2.
There's 2.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
Yeah, we have like 3 extra XLRs right now, or something like that. So that's what we're using right now. That's why when we add more ears, we're going to add 4 more. We'll have to get another D-rack, and we're just going to get 2 just to have it set. So that we'll have a total of those 32 outputs. So each D-rack has 32 mic inputs. It has 6. It can have up to 16 line outputs, and it connects via EtherCon to the SD9. And EtherCon is just a really fancy XLR connector that has really a Cat5 cable inside of it. That's all it is. It's a locking Cat5 cable that's nothing special about it other than it's a shielded cable. So these guys can be set up to 150 meters away from the board. Not that you need to know that. That's 497.5 feet. The only reason I know that is because I had to quote that earlier today. Don't think I know that kind of stuff. Anyhow, so that's the D-rack.
So in a touring situation, do they normally keep the D-rack at the stage and
Yes.
run that EtherCon back to the board? They
That's
don't run
right.
snakes back to the board like they used to.
Or a lot of places they won't use this because copper's not very good conductor. It's actually a little slow. You'll actually lose about 3 milliseconds or something probably over the run.
use fiber optic.
You use fiber optic. And so this has the ability to go fiber optic, but there's no reason to spend that amount of money for that. Okay.
Snakes used to do that.
So the other output of the board is MADI. And MADI is 2 BNC cables that come out of the board. One's an output, one's an input. It allows for simultaneously 64 channels of playback and recording at the same time. So you throw that to a computer or to any other kind of multi-track recorder. In a computer, you would use a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation. And you could record each of the individual channels off of it. Now here's the cool thing. We have 48 channels that can do 64, so we can output 48 channels through MADI to a computer, record 48 lines of audio, and mix it later. Or we can actually play that back through the board, and it's like the band's there. You can affect it. It's just like when you record through MADI, it is the pre-affected signal. So it's before the gain, it's before any EQ, any compression, anything else you've done.
So how would that benefit us if we captured a Tuesday night rehearsal, MADI? How could we use that on a Saturday before a rehearsal?
You would be able to practice different transitions, or you could really dial in your EQ.
That's where I was at.
Except for there's one small side effect, and that's the fact that as you change the EQ, so will the pickup of the microphone being used. So you can dial it in, I would say 95%. But that last 5%, you'll have to do when the mic is live and the guy's singing. You could dial in your effects as well as set up your snapshots.
What's our timeline for using MADI?
That's a question for people with pockets.
Is that a budget question?
It's a budget
So basically,
question.
you just need a computer that's stationed with the soundboard that we use specifically for this?
The quote is we need $4,000 to do it. Okay, it's $1,700 for the card. The SD9 already can put it out. We just need to be able to capture it. It's $1,700 for the card plus a computer and a hard drive that's fast enough for it. 64 channels of audio is a lot of information. It's a ton to record. So we need a fast drive. And they're red and blue cables. If you ever see colored cables coming out of the back of a board that aren't just regular mic lines, they're really important. That's the easy way to put that. All right, and then, let's see where we're going. The last thing is Waves. Waves is a third-party plug-in system. It has the ability through Ethernet to another little computer there. We have the ability to add more effects. You can have different delays, different compression, different EQs. And then also you have the ability to actually, let's say with Andrew, right now the way that we capture him is that we capture him through record or putting a mic in front of his amp. We can actually take the line out of his amp using like a JDX direct box or something, throw it into the SD9, and Waves has this guy here, which is, or the Maserati, which can actually replicate the sound of the speakers coming, of his speakers right there. So there's no bleed over in the system. You don't need an isolation room anymore. You have more control over the signal, and you get to make it sound exactly the way you want to make it sound, which is good. You don't have to worry about it on axis or off axis.
It's like studio stuff.
It's studio stuff.
Yeah,
But there are live plugins that you would use. A lot of guys use the Wave plugins. Now we're $3,000 basically away from Waves. I tried to get it when we got the board, but we just didn't have the budget for it. And even the flight case got cut, and that was only $2,200.
So does that plug in the back of the board, or is that an upload into the software?
It's actually a different processing chip inside of it, another CPU that they put in there. Someone comes in, puts CPU in, and then you go out to another computer which is running Wave Server, and Wave Server is just basically another processing power to where you say, I want this, 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 and this, and this in the rack, but then where the effects are, the effects button actually goes away. It becomes the Waves rack, is what you see.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. So you do kind of lose the effects that we have, but you're not going to care.
Yep.
All right. So I think that is, yep. So now we're going to go real quick before we go into section 2 here. We're going to go over how audio is routed through Meck. So that's everything that the board can do. They got me. All right. So on the stage, we have 7 audio boxes on the floor, right? Audio floor boxes. So we have audio floor box 1, audio floor box 2, 6, and 7. Okay, inside of each audio floor box, you have 8 XLR sends, and you have 4 XLR returns. Okay, so the sends are what you're using to get the signal to the board. The returns is what we're doing to get it back to the stage. Okay, now these split off, all of these come together in the rack. So this is stage. This is the rack.
Which is back here in the room, right?
Which is back here in the room, okay? I'm just gonna draw it out real quick here.
Yeah.
So we have and by the way, DAC is Digico's real quick way of saying D-Rack. So we have DAC 1, we have DAC 2. After that, we have mics 1 through 48. And then we have mics 49 through 64. And then right here we have wireless 1 through 12. We have returns 1 through 32. After the returns, we have, actually, I'm sorry, in between here is the tie line to front of house. And I'll explain that in a little bit. After that, we have the tie to production. And then we have monitor floor box, which is powered. So that's like if we're using wedges. Okay, so the way it works, we also have 2 monitor wedges for each box. Okay, so the way it works is that each one of these, the 8 sends, will come to here. One of these 2. The returns, let me do this in red. Sorry. So this can go here or it can go here. The returns go here. The monitor wedges go here, okay? So everything from the stage goes into one of these areas, all right?
Those are basically like snakes, right? Carrying multiple
Yes,
channels.
yeah, they're 12 channel snakes that are coming into the back of the board.
The 2 monitor wedges, is that 1/4 inch?
No, they're speak-on.
Speak-ons, okay.
Okay, so if you see the speak-ons in there, now none of them are hooked up, but there are 2 amps in there that could be used as 4 wedges. We don't have the outputs of the DSP to do that, which is the thing that controls out of the 3 signals you get from the board. The DSP will take those 3 signals and send it to every single speaker with different delay, different EQ, and all that kind of stuff. So you really, can dial in what the room is. That's how you tune a room. Now, a tie. A tie line is something that just is, it's like a wormhole basically from one point to the next, okay? It's just a snake that ties 2 racks together. So we have 2 main ties. We've had the tie to production, but now it's been upgraded to a 32 channel tie. So that's 16 sends and 16 returns from production, plus another 8, because there's another 8 here. Then you have the tie to front of house. It is another 32 channel send. It is 16 sends, 16 returns. 12 of those are wireless returns, okay? So the wirelesses, are all up in the rack, up in the production room. They don't plug into the back of the board. They come all the way back here to the rack. And the reason we do that is just organization and if we needed to change things around in the future.
Okay. I'm just going to back up for a second. Let's go back up to one of the floor boxes.
Okay.
And each of those floor boxes have the 8 XLR sends, the 4 returns, the 2 monitor wedges. Explain what would be included in the 8 XLR sends.
The sends would be anything plugged in from the stage. It would be an instrument, the drums, it could be the vocal mics, anything on stage that you need to get a signal up to the board, you're going to plug into a send. You're sending from the stage out. So in this case, we're going to the rack room.
What about returns?
Returns are anything we need to send back to the stage. That could be monitor ears. We send that to the stage because there's a small snake that comes out of one of the boxes that goes to where the ears are because they're on stage. As well as we send to the drummer separately, which we're going to get into in a little bit because the drummer is different from all the other ears of the way it's set up. Also, you could do some really funky stuff of sending things from one part of the stage and then returning it back to the back of the stage so that there's no wire going from the front to the back.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so after you get all this stuff here, okay, and we have from front of house, let me draw that in here. So I'm gonna split this in half. Here's front of house. All right, we have the SD9. And we have wirelesses 1 through 8 right now. Okay. So the 2 DACs are plugged up to the SD9 how?
That, after that.
Okay. And then the wirelesses are traveling here. Wrong color. Let's do that little wormhole here. Okay. The tie line between here and here. All right.
Why is that separate?
Why is what
Wireless
separate?
separate? Is it a different?
They're on the
connection?
same 2-space rack or 3-space rack. You'll see in a second because I'm going to take.
I know where they are, but what's the why are they separate 1 through 12? Why aren't they just built into the normal mic lines?
So that when you're in there, you know what they are. You know that those are wirelesses 1 through 12.
But they're still run the same way technically.
Technically, they're the same function. Just imagine that the wirelesses are on the stage. It's the same function. The difference is we're able to see them and be able to see if things are muted or on or what's going on when we hear it popping. We can see and get feedback from them. Good feedback, not bad feedback.
I'm talking about on the rack.
What about on the rack?
Why is it separate on the rack? The wireless.
So that we know that they're the wirelesses. These are stage mics, okay? So we know that this area comes from the stage. This area we know comes from the wirelesses in front of house. It's just a way to keep it organized.
But technically everything is going to the SD9 and then to the rack.
Not necessarily. You can change it 100 different ways. We'll get into that. All right. The last place that we have here is production, which I'm going to lump cafe, and I'm also going to lump the CD recording in here, even though they are in 2 different parts of the building. So we have the SD9. Let's see. Okay, so we have the mics here from production. We use the production line from there. CD recording comes from there, and so does this. Wow, I should have had a 3rd color. Sorry.
Okay, now I'm confused.
Okay, so tell you what, let's do, instead of straight lines,
Dotted lines.
I was thinking kind of like wavy lines.
Wavy
but yeah,
lines.
that'll work too. Okay, so we know that wavy lines are sends. They're outputs. That's a better way to say
Okay,
it.
output out of that DAC, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Out of that output thing on the bottom.
Now,
Got it.
actually, all of this comes out of DAC 1, but you get the idea.
Get the idea.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the way that we patch, this is now where we get to patching. Okay. I have my inputs that need to get into the board, and I have my now inputs that are coming from the stage. We need to bridge that gap, and the way that we do that is with the 3-foot or 6-foot XLR cables that we have in there, the patch cables. The way I've got it working now is there are 32 inputs and the 8 outputs, okay? I started at mic 64 and I started going backwards. So 64 went to 32, 63 goes into 31, and so forth and so on. The really cool thing that happened when I did that was there are 8 inputs on each line, right? There are 8 sends in each box. So it so happened that each line, as you go through the racks, is a different stage box, which came out pretty cool. I did not mean for that to happen. It just I figured, oh, hey, that made sense. So that's how it works all the way up there. Now that takes us all the way to input 25, all right, from 32 to 25 of DAC 1, okay? That's everything from, no, 17, I'm sorry. 17. That takes us up to mic 25, which is here. Does anyone know what's special about mic 25 on the stage?
It's only used for Rick's keyboards, I know that.
Is it a return?
It's the last, or it's the first lowest number. There we go. It's the lowest number sent on the back row. 24 is on stage front, stage left. We don't ever use anything in the front because Jim trips over it.
That's what I was just about to ask that question,
Yeah.
but I waited.
So nothing, well, 24 is plugged in just because I got a little happy with all the patching. But from 24 on here, we don't ever have anything plugged in. I don't even know if the wires work, to be honest.
Now, why couldn't we get smaller XLRs and just plug them in right there? At least on the sides, not maybe right in the middle where he's at.
It's a KG question.
Just saying.
You could.
You could.
Okay.
You could. We've done, actually, okay, I take that back. We have used mics 1 through 8 because we used it for that conference when we had the conference. Okay, after this, now we have 16 more inputs. There is nothing on the second row of here. There's no inputs. It's all free. And in fact, everything but the first 2 inputs are free on this DAC. So we can add up to that many more inputs into it. The only thing that we have here, this is Mac Video left, Mac Video right, or Mac Video and Video Click, as we know it. Because the MacBook has the 2 channels coming out of it, left and right. If we want it to be heard in this house, we make sure that it's panned to the left. If we want it to only be heard in their ears, we make sure that that signal's only panned to the right. And that's how we're able to play music and give them click. The music's in the left channel, their click's in the right channel. And that's the way that we're able to make that happen when we have a video click with music or talking on top of that. Happens very rare, but we do it.
Repeat
Yes,
that
John.
again.
Okay.
If we have a video clip coming to us,
So-
pan left is in the house, pan right's in their ears.
Video with click,
Yep.
okay? Left channel is Mac Audio. And that is heard, okay? The right channel is the band click.
But it's on 2 separate faders.
Exactly. I don't stereo it.
Oh, okay.
Why don't I stereo it?
Because it would go all left side.
If
Right.
you go one way or the other,
You'd have to go one way or the other, and the other one would be lost.
yeah, they'd be lost.
So I have to come in on 2 separate inputs, 2 separate channels. And then all I do is I don't route an output of the right side to where it just goes off into dead space. So there's no way it can make its way back to the master. All I do is I tell it to go to the auxes. Whereas the left channel, I'll give it an output. Okay? All right.
Over here, Jared,
Yeah.
wireless 1 through 8.
Uh-huh.
Where's that plugged into the DAC at?
It's not yet. Oh. It's actually the,
Because you down
it's
below
actually, okay, it's not 32, but it's this first line here on the DAC.
on the bottom.
Yeah, we're gonna, as soon as I get done with this, we're gonna walk in there, I'm gonna show you it. So y'all get a visual, instead of it's just this, you're gonna actually visually be able to see it. Okay, so mics 1 through 48, and everything is plugged up and back and forth. Okay, it's time for ears. All right, so the outputs is, we have these returns here. We have 32 returns back to the stage. Okay, I know because 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, I know there's 3 boxes across the front. There's the 4th one back there. 4 plus 4 is 12, but I know it starts with an odd number 13. So 13 plus 4, 13 through 6, no, wait.
You said
13.
4 plus 4 is 12. So you're
Yes,
off.
and then you have to add 1. Wait, 4 times, whatever.
I got you.
Jared, we're obviously going to ask that you send us this presentation, but
Yeah.
I'm going to also ask if you could pretty up this.
I've been
And-
working on a CAD on this
and give
for
us,
a while.
yeah, give us a prettied up version
Yeah.
of this.
I'd love that. I'd love to carry that.
With
around.
different colors and weighted lines and that kind of stuff. I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
I'm just horrible in AutoCAD.
That's
That's one thing I'm not good at, guys. I can't do AutoCAD.
it's tough. I know.
All right, so where was I? Okay, so the returns. All right, channel 13 through channel 16 are returns back to the first 4 ears. All right, and the way that goes back to that rear left stage box, okay, or stage right rear, and that's going to come from the DAC here. It's going to come to the returns, and then it goes back out to the stage. Okay, from the stage it then plugs into the ears. Okay, the drums is different. The drums are different because they don't use wireless ears. They use that sound mixer, which was started because Ray liked to mix. And we really want to put it back on wireless, but we just haven't gotten around to it
Just
yet.
so you know, like none of the drummers really use that thing.
I know. We're going to
So,
get back
if
to
we
it.
want to go back to wireless,
We've
that's
got to
it.
join. We got to buy another wireless. That's why we haven't done it yet. We would. Okay. This is what we do for right now because the drummer's running off of that mixer. Okay. We come out of the DAC. We go to the returns, and then we send it. Right now it's like 25 or something like that. So we send it to return 25, which then is sent to the drummer's mixer.
Well, how can he mix it? Because you're only sending one signal.
Yeah.
He used to mix the loop, or the click. He used to have metronome separate, and he used to have the bass coming in as a separate input.
Oh, really?
Now we've gotten away with that. We've just not allowed it.
But he still mixes his own click.
No.
Yeah, actually,
I
well,
don't think so.
No, he does.
he gets his own
does.
click.
He
He
does
does
get
get his
that.
own click. And that's just so that he can start up the next song
For the rest of it.
before the band is getting that click in their ears. Right?
No.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyhow,
He's starting to quit.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Starts to quit.
There's
So-
no reason for it.
Right.
Right.
There's no reason for it. That's the point. Yeah.
There's no reason.
Except for we've got to deal with it till we get a new one. So here's the thing about that drum mixer. All right. It's a mic only input. What does that mean?
Say that
It's
again.
not line.
He's got it. It only sends a line out. This is a mic input. So what do we have to do for him that we don't blow him out of the water?
Press the button.
We have to press the button. Remember when we had that problem with the, what did I call it? The drum mix was being mixed inside of a smushed up Lay's potato chips bag. That's what it sounded like. It was just crinkly and bad. Everything is because we were clipping out his mixer. So the way that we fix that is the auxiliary output for him, which is aux 5 or his aux. We pad it, 6 or whatever it is. Yeah, we pad it because subs are first.
Does that get changed ever?
Nope.
So, this is all good to know.
Mhm.
We need to know this. But is there a practical reason why we need
Yes.
to know this?
Yes.
Okay, why do we need to know this from a practical standpoint?
What happens when we move the drums across stage?
We use different floor boxes.
Okay.
But nothing changes on all this back here.
Nothing else changes. as
So
far as I know.
what if we do like we did that one time when we used the flat riser for the drums and we covered up the box that had 25 in it? We had to repatch his ears.
Then you have to go back and manually
You
press
have
the
to
line
manually go
button.
back. No,
Button again?
well, no.
No,
You have
you
to
don't.
manually go back and change this line to a different return. I'm teaching y'all about the patching side so that you know that if there's an issue, it's possible that you might have to come back here and patch. For example, right now, channels 42 and 43 coming out of here going to here don't exist. I've taken those patches out because I needed 2 more for this weekend for what we
So
had.
the only thing they would have to know is switching the return.
Switching the returns or
In the
switching
rack.
these. If they needed, let's say that we needed to plug in 58 for some reason in the front row, the front stage box. You need to know how to take an XLR and plug it from here and know that you can plug it up anywhere here on the top. So you need to know about this in order if something changes.
We need to go over that back there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did
Okay.
you switch it though to where they're all lined up now? Where you don't plug it in anywhere? Or you still could technically?
We don't have enough inputs for that.
Okay.
We have more inputs here than we have here. I can't plug everything in.
Can you explain the ears real quick? Because
Yeah.
you got, out of DAC 2, you got an output going to the returns.
Yep.
And then you got a solid line going up to the floor boxes and a dotted line going to ears.
Right. Here's what okay, well, actually the returns are, yeah, okay. So these returns, I'm saying that this whole thing corresponds with the returns in each of the floor boxes. Okay, so there's 4 in each box.
Right.
Okay, so they come down here, yeah. Okay, what I'm showing here is that we're picking here, this goes to the ear floor box, which is audio floor box 4.
Oh, okay, that's one of the floor boxes.
That's one of the floor boxes, okay? So we just call this for the time being, or AFB4.
Now,
Okay.
where's the ear thing that's back behind the curtain?
When you first walk in, it's to your left. You just said
not
what
the
I
rack.
just said.
The downstairs on the stage. You
Yeah.
know, the behind us and behind the curtain, there's that
That's
ear
okay.
thing. What's that?
So this is audio floor box 4, okay? Off of audio floor box 4 goes to another rack, which has 2 ear transmitters. Okay?
That's receiving the sound from
It's
transmitting
sending it to you
our
wirelessly.
box. Okay.
Exactly. So there's a small little 4-channel snake that goes from here to here. Okay? So if you don't see things moving on here,
You're not getting it.
it's probably because this line's not plugged up right, or something there. You know that this is troubleshooting. This is what I'm teaching is the troubleshooting thing here. So you have 2 ear transmissions. Okay, they're stereo transmitters. What we do is we make the musicians pan either left or right. So that gives us 2 channels per transmitter. Okay. In a perfect world, you send your vocalist a stereo signal, but we just don't have the auxiliaries to do that because that requires 2 aux per person now.
So technically, we have 8 packs we can have, the most.
Let's not worry about that.
Okay, but technically, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we could have up to 13. If we really want to, we could have up to 15 ears.
I don't know why, but that's all right.
Okay, actually, we could have 16 ears if we really wanted to. Okay. 16 different mixes, and the sound guy would probably shoot somebody. All right, so that basically does it. From there, I think that basically does patching. And wireless again goes to DAC 2. Okay, out of DAC 1 is our outputs, which go to our DSP.
What's that?
That is what controls, for out of here is all our speakers. Okay, this is what controls what each speaker gets. Okay, so we can tune the room. That's our subs, our left and our right. And then we have the production send, and we have, which actually comes down to this guy. So from here, you'll see wires come down here. Cafe, actually the cafe has its own line, so it goes up off in the Netherlands to be routed the longest cable in the building. And then we have the CD recording, which also goes and shoots through the
So the amps that control the production room, the cafe, are they back in here in the amp room, or are they somewhere else?
The cafe has its own transformer amp in the cafe back room.
Okay.
The only thing we're sending them is a line level signal that is blasted the heck out of it to make it all 450 feet of it.
And they control their own volume.
They control their own volume.
Master volume.
Yeah, exactly. Basically what I do is I just double up, whatever I'm sending in production room, I just double up to everything else.
What about there's an overflow room, right?
Same thing. Overflow actually pulls its audio off of the iNet mix.
Oh, so it's the same thing.
It's the same mix. Anytime you see a TV that's playing music, it's coming off the iNet mix.
Is the overflow the one that's down there in the lobby?
Actually, we call it now the loft, and it's up over here above the new West Atrium.
Okay.
That area up there. Okay, let's take a walk real quick. Let me
Question for you.
Yeah.
That's always what happens.
the rehearsal on
I was
Thursday.
ended up hurting
Yeah.
myself.
And then
The drums had switched on me, so I moved everything over.
And I think
But I had no
exploded, and
kick
then, like,
until I turned it to
2
stereo.
months or 6 months later, I started.
You
So
know
you
why
turned
that
to
was?
stereo.
Yeah.
Um,
It seemed to be fine.
Probably what was happening was you hadn't activated 48 volts for it, and when you turned it to stereo, there was another one that had 48 and automatically activated it for that one.
Gotcha.
That's probably what happened. Okay.
that's
Yeah.
why I practiced this past Wednesday. I was trying to get the bass connected, and Lane plugged his board up, and it couldn't get any sound until we hit that plus 48 volts. On.
Yes, he has an active DI, which means it has to have phantom power.
Okay.
The Pro 48 is a DI that it requires phantom power in order to run.
So it's like neither of those mic level or line level. It's like a
It's a different thing.
One of the first things that you ask when you're doing this is, does your DI box need phantom power? That's one of the first. If you're not getting a signal, one of the first things to check.
Yeah.
Even without asking sometimes.
We never worried about that at the lake because we have to send phantom power for 8 channels in a block. So we just basically have them all on because there's something that's on that block that's going to need phantom power.
That's not good for the computer.
I guess what we really
It's
ought
not
to
good for the
do
computer.
is try to
I'll
redo
wait for
stuff
that
so that all the things that
Yeah.
need phantom power are in the
Right.
same blocks. But
Yeah.
you end up, if you have one thing in those 8 channels that needs phantom power,
Well, and,
it's on for all
that's
8.
what the MG series of the Yamahas do is they
Yeah.
break it up. The board that we have in there is actually all 12 faders are phantom on or phantom off. And you remember how I kept saying that I think we got struck by lightning because everything keeps dying? No, someone had tripped the phantom power on it. It had been on for 4 months straight, powering into 48 volts into all of my equipment. And so we lost the logic board on the Mac Pro and the logic board and hard drive on the iNet, and it started to destroy our Matrox recorder for video. The phantom power is a very bad thing for certain things. You need to make sure that you start with blank slates, and we're going to go over that when you start over again. There are some mics, ribbon mics, that if you throw 48 into it, and it's not designed for 48, you will burn that ribbon right up.
I don't think we have any of those at all.
No, we don't.
I still think we're safe.
But it's just one of those things that you got to be careful
If we could
of.
control it by channel, I would make sure it was.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
with the way it is,
Mhm.
if you have one thing in those 8.
And it's
you
that
can
thing
have
of if nothing would change, and that's the problem here. Is like things will be the same for 2 weeks in a row, and you think, all right, I got it, and then next week they throw a curveball at you, and you don't even,
Yeah.
you know. All right, so now we're getting to the second section. We have talked about the inputs, we've talked about outputs, as far as physical connections.
Did you?
Yes, I'm recording. I have a little bit left on that thing. I think we're not going to be able to record the very last little bit of this. So I'm going over this now, and I'll do the second part later on because it's going to be on the computer, looking at the software. Okay, buses. This is where we get into the fun stuff. Groups, control groups, the matrix, the auxes, and the banks. And right now what we're going to talk about on here before I go to the computer is we're going to talk about, oh, there's that bus, is the control groups versus groups. Now, on the analog board, I'm just gonna go ahead. Everyone got this? Everyone good? I can. Okay. I'm not flipping it around. On the old digital, on the analog board, what did we have on it?
Had a subgroup and then a main out.
Exactly. And what was the one characteristic of the subgroup? What was it? What did it function as?
You can control overall volume level of whatever group was assigned to it,
Okay.
plus you can mute it.
Exactly. When you muted it, what did it do to the individual channels?
I don't believe it muted individual channels, did it? No,
So what did that mean? What did that mean for auxiliaries?
we're still alive.
Right. Now, what about mute groups that were on the auxiliary board? What did they do
Mute groups on the right.
Muted everything.
on the analog board?
Muted groups
Muted
and
everything.
individual channels.
Muted everything.
You muted everything. What did that mean for the auxiliaries?
They were muted.
They were off.
Muted, they were off.
Okay, that's an important thing. Okay, what's something that we have that's a post fader that can still play sound even if we've cut off to the main speakers?
iPod,
What's an output that we have that's a post fader,
post fader.
which means that if we mute the group but not the channel, that sound can still continue to go through it.
That was one of the clicks.
Subs.
Subs. So if you're going along and you're just hearing, you don't know what it is, it's because that channel is unmuted. You've got the subgroup muted, but you didn't mute that channel. A mute group would mute the channel.
I hear you, I understand you, but that's got to sink into my thick head.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the definitions that I think we should take away. A group is a bus that takes independent input from channels and controls them as a collective. Now, I've thought about this for about 3 weeks driving up and down the road. This is the best definition that I can come up with that controls it. And it's the key words. The bus that takes independent input from the channels and controls them as a collective. Okay? It means that it takes those inputs from the various channels and it controls them as a separate group.
Well, it really doesn't control them, it just takes their output and
It controls
conglomerates
the
them together.
collectiveness, right, but not the individual. A control group is a bus that manages slave channels to itself and manipulates the channels as itself.
And maybe most important of everything, your channel better be in a group or you will not get sound, correct? If it's not assigned to a group,
Right.
you will not get sound.
So what are the groups that we can have? Let's go over that. Name them out. What are groups that we can have? Subgroups.
Master,
That's one.
instrument, vocal, whatever.
Right, okay.
iPod 10.
So what if you only had master and
All else.
instruments? All else,
All
yeah,
else.
you remember that one. That was my catch-all. For those of y'all that don't know, that for a while there, while we were trying to figure out groups or whatnot, we had LOVs, and then we have TAC, and then we had this, and we had that, and we started taking up all these auxiliary channels, and I said, well, let's just make an all else group. And so if it wasn't an instrument, and if it wasn't someone singing, it went into this all else group, which created a nightmare sometimes. Okay, so a group is a subgroup, is what we think is a subgroup. In the SD9, it is a group. That's what they call it. All right? So there's no subgroups anymore. It's a group. That's the terminology that we're going to use. A control group is like a subgroup, except for it actually manages and controls the channels just like itself. So if you put it in mute state, the channels get muted. If you push the volume up on it, the channels actually change their volumes. You don't see the faders move, but it actually does do that.
We're typically only using it though as mute groups.
Typically, but you can use them, and that's where we get to difference. There's two different types of ways that you can use a control group, and that's a good segue. Okay, there is a mute only. That's one way. You probably want to write this down. There's a mute only, and there's a VCA style. Okay? And the VCA is variable control response, I believe is what it is what it stands for. Basically, this is what the difference is. Mute only, it's a mute group. It does nothing else. You can push that fader up, you push the fader down, doesn't change it. All it does is mute the groups and unmutes the group, or the channels. Mutes them, unmutes them. A VCA style is a combined. It's like a subgroup and a mute group. The fader will actually change the volume. Now, where are you going to see that? Let's go and look.
That makes sense.
Okay. So I've got to boot this guy in Windows real quick. So who all here has the SD9 offline software?
I don't use it.
I got it loaded on, but I've
I
never
don't
used
use it.
I haven't done much
It
with it,
seems
but I have.
worthless so far to me.
I only put it on my laptop because you told me I needed to, Jerry.
Exactly, that's exactly. I think I've taken it off my laptop.
I played with it for a little bit, just to kind of, it's a good way to kind of learn my way around without having to take time looking at it. But I didn't spend much time with it.
Lovely. Boy, this is going to be fun. Let me see if I can change.
That's the biggest problem I had, is I couldn't get it to all fit on the screen. I was constantly having to scroll it and pan it around. And
I think I can make this thing. Is it playing?
it was on top with very low resolution.
You had it there for a second?
Yeah, for a second it popped up.
There it is. Okay, good. Because this is the size of the screen. It's just barely not big enough. Okay, so up here, okay, are my buttons for master screen, to see the left side, to see the right side, and then my overview. All right. So what we're looking at is actually the very, very most basic thing that we've ever had as far as a file. So what I'm going to do is real quick, I'm going to load. So there's that Morox, okay. And we're just going to save it there. Okay, close that out. All right. Let me go to my right side. So here are my CGs. All right. So here I have all my ears, and then here's my CGs. You see this right here? Here's that VCA style. So this is VCA, which means both. It mutes and it changes the volume. Okay, if I click it again, it says mute only. That means it will only mute these guys. All right. If I say moving fader, it will not mute, but it will change by the fader.
This is a practical question.
Mm-hmm.
What would be cool is if we had a group that also functioned as a mute group.
Yes.
Can we do that?
No. Here's the difference between the two things that you're going to notice, okay? In here, this is all my members that are inside of it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's slaving. These are what I call my slaved channels, okay? Now, if I come over here, I don't care. This is my instrument group, okay? So this is acting as a subgroup for all my instruments only. What's the difference between the group and the control group that you notice?
Got EQ.
It's got an EQ, it has a trim,
Dynamics.
it has dynamics, and it has the ability to have inserts.
Functions like an individual channel to an extent.
It functions like an individual channel. Now, let me explain why I actually leave one subgroup on here. The only reason I do it is for this EQ right here. I like, and this does not mean y'all don't have to, there we go, I have to right click, I forgot on this. All I do is I dip my mix right there. And I know I've told most of y'all the same 1,000 times. It's just so my vocals, I don't have to push my vocals. It lets them just ride just a little bit more inside of the instruments. I don't have to push their whole range.
So that's the vocal subgroup, or that's the whole mix?
This is the instruments only.
Instruments only, okay.
The vocals and everything else goes directly into my master. Whoops. Into my master. Now, if I double click on here, when you click on the top row of a bus, okay? So I click on this, it'll show me what's coming into it. So you can see everything that's going into the masters. Everything. Except for these guys. All right, and then here is my subs here, okay? This is an auxiliary. All right, so as we know we all know how to add something to a control group, right? We don't need to go into that. We do?
I think I've done it.
Yeah, we were practicing.
We know all the different ways to do it now.
Okay, good, good. Oh, so you really did have a 5 o'clock meeting?
We did.
Okay, cool, good, good, good. All right, so that's good, that's awesome. So that basically kind of covers that.
So when you have the control group in VCA mode, and you said it's like a subgroup, is it really taking that output and collectively bringing it together, or is that fader just changing the volume of the individual channels, and the individual channels are still routing? They're
That's
not routing
exactly
through
right.
the channel, they're routing on their own. You're just affecting their overall volume.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And I don't know if that's a real significant difference, but it probably is at some point.
Okay. So, control groups versus groups. Groups can be assigned an EQ. They can be routed as a direct output, meaning that they can go, instead of passing through the master and going out to our speakers, you can send them to a line out and send it out of the board, and it doesn't have to be heard in there.
Same thing as on an analog.
It's the same thing as a direct out on an analog.
Because they always had an XLR in the back that you could plug in and come
Exactly, come right out at line level.
Right.
Okay. They can be routed. A group can go to another bus. Then that's the same as saying this subgroup's going to the master, because the master is another bus.
Right.
All right. They can only affect the collective gain. That means they don't change the individual gains of the individual channels. They only change as a whole by themselves. Just that changes. And it can only mute its own output, not the individual channels. Control groups cannot be assigned EQs. They cannot be routed as direct outputs. They cannot be routed to another bus. They can affect both collective gain and post-send gain. Now, what does that mean? That means that not only, this is the difference between a subgroup and a control group that's really cool when you're mixing. When you're ready to push maybe the drums up a little bit, okay? If you have them in a subgroup, the drum subgroup, the group, and you push it up, you're only changing what's going from that out. Which means that if you don't have a sub drop off of that, the post fader for the subs doesn't go up. So while your high ends are going up, your low end staying exactly where it is. Everything that goes out of a post. And that's the important thing. It's a post only. We know the difference between post and pre auxiliaries, right?
Yeah, let's go over that though.
Okay.
So groups, when you're adjusting groups, well, okay, right now the board should be set up, individual channels should be set up pre, right? Is that how most of our individual channels are set up?
Yes.
Pre for all oxes?
Almost all auxes
Even
except for
subs?
subs
Subs.
and effects.
Right. So when we're bumping individual channel faders,
Do you see what we do with markers?
no. Okay, so like with the analog board, when we manipulated a fader, it didn't change ears, but when you adjust the gain, it would.
Pre, yes.
Right. Same, I imagine. For this console, even gain doesn't affect their ears, right?
Pre, yes.
It doesn't affect their ears in pre.
No, gain does.
It does.
Gain affects everything. Doesn't
Okay.
matter what it is.
All right, but
Gain's the
but
first
the faders
thing.
themselves in pre won't affect their ears,
Man, I wish I had those markers right now.
and so groups can be set pre or post as well.
That's correct.
They should be set pre.
Groups.
Groups should be set pre. Because if I want to boost, I want to be able to boost a whole group, but I don't want to change their ears. In other words,
Your subgroups don't go out to the ears. The ears are a different bus. It'd be the same as saying if I push the instruments, I don't want the vocals to go up. They're two different buses.
Good.
So one's
Yes.
not going to affect the other
Good.
one. You're going two different directions.
So pre, the only way you can affect their ear is to adjust a gain somewhere
Or mute.
or mute it.
Okay. There are 3 different auxiliary sends. There's pre-fade, which means, wish I had more markers.
You didn't carry me in the other room, did you?
I don't think I did, no. I don't know.
Let me go see.
We'll survive. No, we'll survive without them. Okay, the first thing, let's think about the channel strip. Let's think about the, just say channel strip. What's the first thing on the top?
Gain.
It's the gain, okay? The gain is the first thing. And actually the gain is actually the D-rack, okay? Because you have an analog gain, right? That's the D-rack. That's before it even gets converted into digital signal. It's just the way it looks at it, okay? I do this because of Maddie. Because I can't just say it actually changes analog. It doesn't. But that's the first thing, okay? After that, there is the dynamics, okay? But let's just skip the dynamics and all that. The next thing in the signal path is the mute, okay? After the mute is going to be your fader, okay? So you have it gain coming in where the channel is being allowed to go to the fader and the fader adjusting the sound, and then it passes out the bottom. Think of the channel like that as it comes through, okay? Post fader means that it comes out after the fader, okay? So the gain affects it, the mute affects it, the fader affects it, post fader. Pre-fader, the gain affects it, the mute affects it, but it passes out before it gets a chance to go to the fader. Okay, that's what we have our ears at. Okay, there's one above that, pre-mute. The gain affects it, goes out before the mute. Doesn't matter whether you've muted it or not. And there's only one thing on the board that's pre-mute. What would make the most logical sense to be pre-mute? What's the one thing that the band has to hear above all else, no matter what you screw up?
Clip.
The clip. That is so no matter what, it is foolproof.
So is it set up?
Set up that way.
I didn't know you could set it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do that at?
You could either use the second function, as me and Jeff have done 100 times, or you can go to the auxiliary, which I'm going to show you in just a second, and show you how to affect the different auxiliaries. We're getting a little away from control groups and that. Let's get a little bit back to that. So collective post gain send. Okay. So what that means. So what this means is that the control group will affect the post sends. It will not affect the pre's. It will not affect the pre-sends. Because what's the control group doing? It's moving the fader. Okay, you're not seeing the fader move, but that's what it's doing. So at that point, anything that's post, subs, your FX, or anything like that, when you boost that group, your drums, you're boosting it sent to the subs. You're boosting the plate, the percussion plate.
Which is what we want.
Which is exactly what you want to have happen.
Right, that's what you want.
That's why I run with my instruments as a group, and everything else I do in my subgroups, or my control groups, because I run it VCA style. That way, if I push up, I know that the subs are going to go with me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does anyone have any more questions about the difference between groups and control? I know this is the most important part of this thing. I think is this right here, is because this is the #1 question that's been asked the most. So let's take time on this. If we need to ask more questions, let's go over it.
Where I'm confused at, and we'll get to it later, is, and you've showed me, I just forget how to do it. If I want to assign another control group, how do I?
It's the same as assigning a channel.
You got to go up into that
Channel list.
Channel list, drop it down.
You have your input channels first. That's your flexi channels.
Right.
And then you have your auxes,
And
then your buses, then your control groups,
Got it.
and then your talkback and solo.
Gotcha. Just go pick one, assign it to a channel, but
So let's go back and talk about the difference between, or actually just talk a little bit more about VCA style control groups.
Okay? VCA control groups are the same as a subgroup that has the ability to individually mute the channels, but cannot be affected itself through EQ or control. It is not in itself a bus that passes signal. It has no output.
We should use VCA style on what?
I think everything. I think we slowly get away from subgroups, which is an analog world thing. Because VCA only came around with digital boards.
Groups.
Control groups.
You're saying, okay, you're starting
No,
to use
no, no.
the word subgroup again.
Right.
Where you want to get away from what?
Groups.
Groups.
And go towards control groups. See, in an analog board, you had to pass through your transistors. Okay, you had a line from here to here, and it had to pass into some fashion.
Well, that's the question that I asked a while ago. I would also like to get rid of groups and just have control groups so that I could assign all of my drums to a control group.
Right.
To be able to, with the fader, boost or drop it, it not affect ears, and also be able to mute it.
Right.
We can do that.
You can do that.
That's all we need.
You're already there.
That's all we need.
You're already there.
My template's got that.
Yeah.
set up. I just didn't know.
The initial way that the SD9 sets up is it sets up with a VCI style.
Yeah.
Now, when we get into on Saturday, if you're here, this is when we're really going to hit templates because I don't think we have time from. It would not be fair for me to try to rush into
Most of us
templates.
are not going to be here on Saturday.
Okay, we need to get into this. What's next? Okay.
That's good to know because I've always thought that the groups, the control groups were a bit redundant.
I do too.
I just thought it was too much, and it would be great if there was the ability to have all that functionality in one.
So what's still nice though is what he's talking about is sometimes you want to just take all your instruments and dip that one frequency across the board. That's
Absolutely.
something I would love to be able to do over the
Absolutely.
lake,
Yeah.
and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you use VCA, you now can't do that unless you take your VCA and then route it into a subgroup, and now you're using.
Is this enough light for everyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, fine.
Okay. So let's really go into this. Now we got to talk about how the board is set up. Now we're going to go into a screen that you've never seen before. I think most of you. I think
Is it
Jeff's seen
possible
it.
to pull that projector back a little bit and make that a little bit?
Yeah.
That's a good call.
I made the mistake. Sitting way back here.
Move back as far as you can. And then
Just drop it down, yeah.
I just want to let you know that while doing that SD9 thing earlier today, I found out that training, you have to add training in. And for the SD7, it's training level 2. And the SD9 has a level 1 training, which is what Jeff ran over with you today, which is just how to use the board. You know, how to survive. Level 2 training is what we're doing today, and I just want to say that y'all all owe me $950 an hour. All right. And just to be clear, which I'm sure we all are, this is me volunteer doing this, not SE Systems. So let's just, because I think
I'm going to the one next week.
yes, you are. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they
It'll be
approach some of
interesting to
these
see what they
things.
do.
Because I'm approaching this from a Meck perspective, okay? There's going to be stuff they're going to throw at you too that you're going to blow up.
I guarantee I'll be lost 90% of the time. I guarantee it.
Or you're going to go in
check
there
it.
and you're going to look like a genius. I
One
don't
or the
even
other.
know. Okay.
I've been following Digico. I've been looking at the Digico website for training since August when got started. Every week I look at Digico training, and all the training ever offers either in Hong Kong, or Tokyo, or London. And last week they popped up training classes in Atlanta on the March 19th and 20th. It's one-day classes, but they're teaching for 2 days.
Was it $600 for the class?
It's free.
No.
Class is free with free lunch.
All right. Well, let's sorry, we're gonna have to keep moving here.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. So when you first start out the board, let's pretend that you need to start from scratch. Okay, you do this if you're in a new location or something like that. Okay, this is how you're going to start your templates. All right. So you go to Files. Okay. Now you've used templates here, but here's a thing called session structure. Okay. The way that the session structure is this is how you tell the board what you need. This is what you need. This is how many buses you need. This is how many channels you're going to have if you had different channels. This is whether you're going to be running a 48 and 96. By the way, we're always running a 48. I'm not going to get into why, because that's just, you don't even know that yet. It's just, yeah. But we run in 48. We run the lesser count. 1, because we have crappy speakers. There's no point. 2, because there's a bug at 96 that we can't survive with. It erases the DACs. So nothing's ever labeled. All right, so in here, as you see, this is what you're seeing here as mine right now. You're seeing the input channels here, 48 count, is asking about the aux sense and the direct sense, okay? You have your auxiliaries, your group buses, your matrix in, your matrix out, control groups, graph EQs, effects, audio I/O, and your communications, okay? You also have the ability here to change where things fall into place. For example, in here is where I can say I want this to be after all my years, or I want the subs to be before my years. I want it to be auxiliary 1. Okay, this is where you're changing all this. But do know this, if you change something in here, consider yourself starting from scratch. Okay, this is not something that you halfway through the rehearsal go, oh man, I really want another aux. Tough. You're gonna have to wait till after practice, because you're gonna screw everything up in the way that the order things line in, because it's not looking at this word subs, it's looking on auxiliary 1. So if you change that, whatever you're saying to subs, you're now gonna be sending to Steve. So you got to be careful with that, all right? This is something you start out with, all right? So let's start by, I'm going to default all and restructure, and it's going to make me want to save. Okay, so I've just defaulted it to what happens when the board comes online, all right? So here we go. By the way, I think stereo, no, okay. 4, 4, 4, and 4. What does that number add up to?
16.
16. So these are the numbers that you're going to play around with, okay? Now, you have, actually, I'm sorry. 4, 4, 4, 4, and 1 is what? 17.
17.
But what's in here in this group?
16.
The master. The master doesn't count. There's always a master group. Okay, but this is where you would tell it where it's an LCR or not, okay? So the way that you would do this is you would type in these areas and you would change these numbers. What I would start out with is I would just go ahead and say 0 for all of them.
Why?
Because otherwise you have to keep, it's like, you know that computer game that you use to see, that one changed to 1, because it has to have a master output. You remember that game that you used to have in Windows 3.1 with the mouse and the piece of cheese, and you had the little blocks that you had to keep changing in order to get the mouse to move over to the piece of cheese at the other end of the puzzle? You never played that? I think it was DOS too. Oh, come on, I was pulling back. I'm trying to pull back far enough. Anyhow,
What do you say?
because you only have 16, it won't allow you to add a higher number than what's there.
If you try to change that 4 to a 5, it would fuss at you.
It wouldn't let you do it. It just wouldn't change. So what I do is I just kind of blank everything out and I start from scratch. So, okay, talk to me. What do we want in this mix? Someone tell me something. How about we have an instrument and a vocal and a drum group? Does that sound good? All right. They're going to be stereo or they're going to be mono? What do you want to run it as? And here, you want to run it as mono? If you run it as mono, then you're not going to have any pans left and right. But if you did stereo, you always have the option later. It doesn't hurt to go stereo.
Stereo. Do stereo.
Okay. Okay. So 3 plus 1 is 4. All right. So now let's go to this group order. Okay. Well, I can name them later. But if you wanted to, you can actually add them in here too. Should be able to. Okay. Now, auxiliary buses. I have 13 buses left. Now, here's where you get tricky. Mono and stereo. Okay? Well, we know we want one sub group, right? We want one sub. But now we need to start thinking about our ears. Okay? We have 5 ears. And they're mono, right? They're not stereo, they're mono. Even though they're going into stereo transmitters, it's a mono signal. So let's add 5 to that. All right, so now we have 7 buses left. So now let's start thinking about, all right, what about our auxes for reverb? Well, reverb is technically a mono aux because we drop it into 1 and we make it stereo after the effect, right? The effect is actually what makes it a stereo thing, to where the reverb can go like this. But it's mono coming in. Same
It's
thing
mono
with delay.
going to it.
It's mono going into
Going to a stereo coming back.
it splits into a stereo later. So there's the delay, there's the reverb. How about an instrument verb and a percussion plate? So that's 4 more. So now let's make this 10. All right. Now, maybe I want to do something with keys. And let's say that for once in his life, Rick gives us a stereo signal, which he can. But we want to add an effect to it. But that means it needs to be in a stereo effect, right? So let's add 1 stereo auxiliary there. Now I have 2 spare buses. I can leave it as is, or if you want to be smart, let's add them there. So you have room to grow. 0 buses left. I now have aux 1 through 4, as well as some other stuff in there. And now I have my buses here to where I'm going to have my master, my vocal, my instruments, and my drums. Okay, and here I'm going to have subs, Steve's ears, backup ears, Andrew's ears, bass and key ears, drum ears, reverb, delay, instrument verb, percussion plate, and 2 more to grow on. Okay?
Why are some of those already labeled? Is that just left over from something else?
No, it's just the way that I defaulted all. It started out with 4 auxiliaries, remember that?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it had them named. Okay, now what about the auxiliaries? Now here's the thing here. I can change this here, or I can do later. Before I start labeling those, I can tell them what to be. Whether I want them to be the post-fader, pre-fader, pre-mute, or whether I want my direct sends post-fader, pre-fader, or pre-mute. Now notice what I can't change. Matrix inputs, matrix outputs, the number of control groups, or the number of channels. And here it does not matter. Your graphic EQs, boom, I can clear them all. I can clear all my control groups to where everything's blank. And here I can also clear all my effects to where I have no effects in my rack. Okay, this is an easy way to real quick, boom, take out all your graphic EQs or take out all that without having to go through them one at a time. You want to make sure you select that. Also, this here, we don't need to worry about this, all right? It's going to figure it out because it takes a digit rack or it can take an SD rack if we have the optical. But we're not going to worry about that, all right? And we can clear our snapshots, we can clear our automation, which is part of snapshots, our macros, and we can clear all presets from here, all right? So, we can clear all there. Let's clear all, just completely clean, all right? So I want all my sends to be pre-faded, all right? So now I'm gonna restructure. Now it wants me immediately to save this because it's not gonna affect the previous mix. This is now a new mix. So we're gonna call this the training blank. All right, and we're gonna save it. All right, so now if we go to our channel list, okay, see that? It's all blank. There's nothing in here whatsoever. And this is where you're talking about before, John. This is where you would change your control groups.
Get the control group added in. Got it.
So
What's the LB1 and the RB2 and all that to the right? What is all that?
layer and bank. It's on the left side, bank 1. This is on the right side, bank 1.
That's what we need to know.
No. Here's the left side of the board, bank 1. Look physically on the board. It's telling you where physically on the board this is. It's on the left side, this is on the right side on the first bank, the top right bank. That's what this tells you to do. So if you look through here, like if I went through here real quick, and I cleared the bank, now I went back here, see they're
Side
unassigned.
to side.
because I assigned all those. All right. So,
So the values that were in there were just default ones that it assigned.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The ones that were in there, which bank it was in, was just default ones that it assigned?
Right, default ones, because I said default all.
Okay.
So, now usually what I'll do at this point is really fast, click here, edit. And you can do this by hitting the backspace and enter very fast. You would start from the top and go down. I have to do it on the computer from the bottom going up because I do backspace and up or backspace and down, doesn't matter, whichever. But you'd be hitting the delete and the enter. So you see I got rid of all that. The other thing I'm going to want to do is go through here and take all the masters out, okay? And it's a little pain at the beginning, but you know, once you get this blank, I'd save it again. All right. So hopefully,
What is that column?
do what?
What is that column?
This is the group. It's asking which group do you want to go into. Okay, everything's defaulting into the master. All right. But since that we have a vocal and an instrument group as well, we can tell it to go to one of those. All right. Now here's the trick though. When you set up when you get a new group, okay, here's the master, all right? It can't go into itself, but group one, which here we'll call our box, and let's call the next one instrument, and then the next one drums. Okay? So at this point, oops, I'm gonna take. All right, so now the Vox group, after it comes to the Vox, where do we want to go? We want to go to master. Same thing with instruments, we want to go to master. Drums, master. Now you could make something here go into another group before it goes out again. Like if you had multiple groups that went into like 4 groups and then to the master, or something like that. Or you could do it to where instead of going out the master here, you can just tell it to go out somewhere on the board. You can just tell it to go outline 1 and 2 if you wanted to. And because this is a stereo, looky here, see this, that S? It's stereo, G2S. Okay, this is 48 regular. However, if I go here and say stereo, now it's a 48S. Okay, another easy way to be able to tell what type of thing it is. Now for the master, we'll need to tell it where to go out. And I know that it's rack 1, line 1 and 2 out, because I know that's my master outs. Let's see, let me...
What you go, hold freeze right there.
Yeah,
What you just did where it said the line out or whatever,
Mhm.
that's what's coming out of the D box?
that's what's coming out of the D box.
Okay.
But one thing that we're not seeing here, when we load, share it more, partial load.
I would like you or TL one to explain to me on individual channels why we're using stereo for an acoustic guitar.
What do you mean?
Why would we want to run individual channel stereo? What does that do for us?
Okay. In the world of video, in the world of audio, sorry, I've been selling a couple videos or videos today. In the world of audio, your speaker can only move X amount of times per second. There's only one time that it can play each frequency at any one time, from 20 hertz to 20K hertz. So what does that mean? It means that if you have 2 instruments that play at the same frequency range, one is going to have to beat out the other. You're not going to hear them both at the same time, full range out of the same speaker. Cannot happen. The speaker can only replicate one of those. So if you have 2 instruments that need to cross over in the same frequency range, say Andrew's higher end.
2 electric guitars.
2 electric guitars. Andrew's higher end and Steve's electric. You need to put one in one speaker and one in the other if you want full range. And the other reason you do it is just for stereo widening. I mean, just to pull people into the room. I do it with the drumstick to hear as he goes through the toms to kind of as he goes around. It gives just kind of a stereo feel. It adds more energy to the room. But more than anything, if you have the kick coming out of one side of speakers and you have the bass coming out of another side speakers, you can have the kick just as hard as you need to and not degrade the bass.
No,
Or the bass taking over
It doesn't
the
make any
kick.
sense. I mean, we've got 4 speakers. You're basically going 1, 3, 2, and 4, right? Is that not how it's set up?
No, it was right, left, right, left, right, left. So at some point on the 45 degrees from center, you're actually inverting the stereo field to where right becomes left and left becomes right.
Okay.
The way that our room is set up. You actually invert that field. And that's the problem when you have clusters like we do. When you have a line array, it makes much more sense.
Sure.
But there is that 45-degree wedge that it is an inversion of the stereo field.
All right. It's never made much sense to me why we would do that.
It's mainly so that you can get more frequencies out there, is what it does. It allows the kick to be snappy, yet still having the low bass rumble, you know, for the bass guitar. And it allows two acoustics to be able to equally shine in one modal phrase or something like that.
I can tell the difference, Jeff, when I run it in stereo. It sounds cleaner to me.
It does. You're going to notice it just cleans it up. Because here's one of the problems you run with mono, is a thing called comb filtering. With comb filtering, you can actually have 2 instruments playing at such a harmonic to each other that they actually their frequencies will cancel each other out. Just like 2 people creating waves at different ends of the pool, when the waves meet in the middle, if they're a complete inversion, it'll be flat, which means no sound. But if you have 2 speakers giving out the equal amount, you can actually combine that. And so instead of comb filtering, you're doing a reinforcement field.
Do you run all instruments and all vocal stereo?
No.
What do you do?
Combination. Kind of a combination of them. And I do, I've never run drums stereo.
Mhm.
I've never done that, but I've done the
Well, I've
guitars.
done the toms, but never the kick. I've never done that.
Kick.
We got can't kick out. That's what
Sometimes I'll throw the 91 in one and the 58 in the other.
That's what I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
Well,
because you have 2 different
Well,
subs
Andrew's
as
2
well.
channels, you can, I see that,
Mhm.
running his 2.
Actually, I don't do that. I thought about doing that too.
Yeah.
The difference between Andrew's 2 is the fact that you have a PG81, which is a warmer sound, and the 57, which is a little more Brillo. And so when you combine the 2 together, you get a full frequency sweep. And so what I actually do is between the 2 channels, the 81 gets, say, we were about 1.2K and lower, and then the 57 I let about 1K and higher or so. I'd make it to where when the 2 graphs touch each other, they make the full line, to where there's a little middle point as they fade out from each other, that they have that high and low pass filter. But I let him be either left or right, but the 2 mics making up his full frequency set instead of one mic coming up from 500 or 400 wherever he starts at to 4 or 5K.
Shouldn't we have develop some sort of standard on
No.
what we're running stereo and what we're running mono?
No,
Why?
that's a mixer's preference. You can mix it one way.
If one's better than the other, we need to go with the better.
Doesn't
I think
matter.
if one's cleaner than the other, I think you ought to stick with it.
That's what I'm
I think it's the
saying.
same thing.
Well, yeah, but now we're getting into theory of mixing, which is what I didn't want to get into because it's just like on the SD9. The reason that they keep the SD9 so open and so free of how to do things is because there's no 2 ways that you can mix. There's no one way to mix sound and come up with the same result. You can have 2 guys mix completely different and come up with the same sound. Whether you're doing a compression, whether your side chain is gate compression or compression gate, or whatever you're running, 2 guys coming from 2 different directions can come out with the same sound.
Yeah.
And it really just comes down to how you mix, how your ears are, and what you want, what you do, and how you mix to get the sound you want. I guarantee you that we can come up with a sound that's very consistent from week to week, even though we have our own little eccentric ways of mixing. Well, we all have our own different personalities anyway, even though the 3 of y'all, let's say, are mixing mono, okay? I count myself out because I don't mix like y'all. I mix like a 27-year-old who still, needs to lose all his hearing. You know what I mean? I mix loud, I do. I mix completely different from y'all. And it's just a difference in the music I was raised on. But the difference is yes, there, even now, even on the old board, y'all all had your own different sounds. TL had this kind of sound to it. You had this nice warm, you know, like kind of an amber type sound to it. And then John has more of a studio type feel to him. I mean, you might not notice it, but there's a distinct, I can tell walking in the room, before I even look up there, I know who's mixing. Usually I can tell when I walk in the doors.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a good thing.
That's not necessarily a good thing, but you're talking about maybe 2 to 5% of people walking in this building. And we're not going after the people who are the audio techs of the world. You know, all our point is here is to make sure that we are not a distraction, but a reinforcement. And yes, we should always be bettering ourselves, but I don't think that I don't think we should limit another person what they're going to do because we've decided as a group that we shouldn't go that route, because we can come up with a good mix. Here's another thing to think about when we think about good mixes, okay? I know that we put that 97 decibel limit on ourselves, okay?
We have not put that limit on ourselves.
Have we not? I know I hit 160 the other week. And here's why. A good mix can be shown loud or can be played louder and still be acceptable.
And a bad mix can be 94 and still be piercing and warm. That's true.
It just depends. And you know, it happens from week to week. I've noticed that on practice, I'm running at about 94 decibels. But on the weekend, after it's dialed in, I'm up towards 100 or above. And you get a house full of people pulling all those high ends back down again. So, you know, I just wanted to bring that up for if anyone was still staying at the 97. That's why we had to Jim made us give a definite number, and that's what we set it as.
Oh, gotcha.
And
I ignored that number.
exactly. Because if it needs to be louder, then you're going to make it louder.
I don't even keep the dB meter on when people are around. I use it for me, I don't use it for them. Because they're always walking by looking at it. It's none of the business.
I'm curious sometimes what I hit, you know, but I can't trust that SPL meter anyway, because, I mean, I've thrown it off the balcony 3 times. Who else has thrown it off?